Learn how small habits can have a bigger impact on your life. So how many habits do you have? You might need to think a minute about this question, because habits are, by definition, behaviors that we perform automatically without or a little thought about the action we are into. Right from making coffee the time we wake up in the morning to brushing teeth before bed in the night, our habits will gradually influence our everyday life. Thus, you may not realize how much power is there in such habits. If this is repeated every day, then even the smallest of actions, from saving $1 to smoking a cigarette, can have a huge effect on our lives. Thus, understanding and embracing such habits is a great way to take control of your life and achieve more. Over time in these videos, you will learn exactly what habits are, how they are formed, and how you can utilize them to change your life for the better. You will also learn why modern life makes our brain's natural wiring somewhat uncomfortable, how a cat in a box advanced the scientific understanding of the formation of habit, and what a nice new soap in the neighborhood of Pakistan can tell us about building habits that stick. Small habits can definitely have a surprisingly powerful impact on your life. Let's imagine a plane taking off from Los Angeles to New York. If, during the takeoff, the pilot had decided to adjust course 3.5 degrees to the south, and the plane's nose would move just a few feet away outside of the cockpit, no one on board would notice this small change. But with the due course of a journey across the country, the impact of the change would be considerable, and the confused passengers would be furious from their plane in Washington, D.C., not New York. We don't notice these tiny changes, because their immediate impact is insignificant. Just in case to say, if you are out of shape today, and do not go for a 20-minute jog daily, you will continue to be out of shape tomorrow. Similarly, if you eat a family-size pizza for dinner, it won't make you overweight overnight. But if we repeat these small behaviors every single day, our choices will accumulate into major results. Eat pizza every day, and it's likely that you will have gained a considerable amount of weight after a year. Similarly, go jogging for 20 minutes every day, and you'll be leaner and fitter eventually, even though you wouldn't have noticed the change happening. Thus, if you want to make positive changes in your life, you must first recognize that any change requires patience and confidence that your habits are keeping you on the right path, even though you don't see the immediate outcome from this. In case, if you find that your behaviors and habits don't seem to be paying off, try to focus on your current path rather than your current outcome. So, to say, if you have little money in the bank but you are saving something from the little money each month, then you can be confident that the path you're taking is right. Your current outcome may not be great, but keep going in this direction, and, in a matter of a few months or a few years, you will surely notice a major improvement. By contrast, if a millionaire who outspends his earnings every month may not seem to be worried about his bank statements from this one month to the next one, but, later, in the end, this habit will catch up with him someday. The key to making big changes doesn't have to involve significant turmoil. So, you don't need to transform your behavior or reinvent yourself. Instead, you can make those tiny changes to your behavior, which repeated time and again to become your habits that may lead to bigger results. Habits are automated behaviors that we've learned from experience. For example, when you walk into a dark room, you don't think about what next to be done. Rather, you instantly reach out for a switch. Yes, it's a habit, a behavior that you've repeated so many times that it now happens immediately without a thought. So how are these habits formed? Well, it's because our brain figures out how to respond to new situations through a process of trial and error, and later these processes could be carried out automatically. In the 19th century, a psychologist named Edward Thorndike demonstrated this with an experiment wherein the cats were placed in a black box. Expectedly, each cat immediately tried to escape from the box, sniffing at the corners and clawing at the walls. Eventually, the cat, placed in the black box, would find a lever that, when pressed, would open a door, letting them escape. Later Thorndike took the cats that had successfully escaped and repeated the experiment. What were his findings? Well, after being put in the box quite a few times, each cat learned the trick. Rather than struggling around for a minute or more, the cats went straight for the lever and escaped the box. After 20 or 30 attempts, an average cat could escape in just 6 seconds without a thought. In other words, the process wherein the cats escaping out of the box had become more habitual. Thorndike had discovered that these behaviors that give satisfying results, in this case, which is gaining freedom, tend to be repeated until they become automatic. Just like those cats in the 19th century, we also do stumble across satisfying solutions to life's problems and difficulties. And, thankfully, we now do understand a little more about how habits work for us. Habits begin with a sign, or a trigger to act. Walking into a dark room triggers you to perform an action that will enable sight. Next comes a longing for a change in state, in this case, to be able to see the surroundings. Next comes our response, or action, which is switching on the light. A reward is a final step in the process and the end goal of every habit. And, here, it's the feeling of mild relief and comfort that comes from being able to see your surroundings. Every habit is the outcome of the same process. Do you habitually drink coffee every morning? Waking up is your sign, triggering a craving to feel alert. Your response is to push yourself out of bed and make a cup of coffee. And your reward is feeling alert and ready to face the world. But, of course, not all habits there are good for us. That we now understand how habits work, let's look at building positive ones that improve our day-to-day lives. Building of new habits requires a plan of action and hard to miss cues. All of us have signals that trigger certain habits. For example, the buzz of your phone is a trigger to check your messages. And once you understand a certain stimulus can trigger a habitual behavior, and this knowledge can be used to change your habits. But how? Well, yes, there is one way, which is to change your surroundings and the general environment to encourage better habits. Let's examine the work of a Boston-based doctor named Anne Thorndike. She wanted to improve the dietary habits of her patients without needing them to make a conscious decision. How did she pull this off? She had the cafeteria of the hospital rearranged. Initially, soda was available in the refrigerators next to cash registers. So, Thorndike introduced water, not only in there but at every other drink station. After 3 months, soda sales dropped by 11%, while water sales shot up by 25%. People were making healthier choices, and this was because the cue to drink water was more prominent than soda. So some simple changes made to our environment can make a big difference. Want to practice playing the guitar? Then, leave the instrument out in the center of the room. Are you trying to eat more healthier snacks? Then leave them out on the counter instead of in the salad drawer. Make your signs as obvious as possible, and you'll be more likely to respond to them. Also, a second great way to strengthen your cues is to use implementation intentions. Most of us tend to be very unclear about our intentions. We say, "I'm going to eat better," and simply hope that we'll follow through it. An implementation intention thus introduces a clear plan of action, setting out when and where you will carry out the habit you'd like to cultivate. And research also shows that it works. A study of voters in the US found that the citizens who were asked the questions like, "At what time will you cast your vote?" and questions like, "How will you get to the voting station?" were actually more likely to turn out than those who were just asked if they would vote. So don't just say that I'll run more often. Instead, say, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, when the alarm goes off, the first thing I will do is train my running gear and clock in for 2 miles. And then leave your running shoes out where you will see them. You will be giving yourself both a clear plan and an obvious sign, and it may surprise you how much easier this will actually make to build a positive running habit.